Okay, so chapter 7 of the Gwynne book is a story of the immediate result of the Council House fight, which some people call the Council House Massacre. There's a big difference between a fight and a massacre. And to this day, there's quite a bit of controversy over whether or not the Indian chiefs that were killed were lured into a trap and murdered. It was pre-planned. this had happened before in Mexico when the Aztec chiefs were killed by the Mexican conquistadors, lured into a trap. Or if what happened was that the Texans were so upset by what they saw, especially the young woman who the Comanches bring in with them, that it just escalated quickly into what turned into a massacre. But whatever the case, there were consequences for this. And chapter 7 is important because it talks about the significant band of Comanche in Texas. Now, you might remember that the Comanche were made up of 12 bands. There were 12 different kind of groups in the Comanche world, stretching all the way from eastern New Mexico, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Taos, Northwest Texas, most of Oklahoma, southern Kansas. The Comanche area was just enormous. And the most powerful group in Texas were the Penatecas, and I won't spell it for you because Gwynne has it in his book. And their chief was a man by the name of Buffalo Hump. And after the Council House fight, the Comanches decide that they need to take revenge on the Texans. So they do something which is pretty unusual for the Comanche. They raid two towns. They raid Victoria and they raid Linville. And I don't know if you can see in this picture that I have up on my screen, when the Comanches would go and raid, and this is something they did in Mexico all the time, they would actually cross over into the more populated areas of Chihuahua. They would go in through Big Bend, that area of Texas. They would cross into kind of north central Mexico, which was more populated than the areas in Texas. And they would just raid deep into Mexico. It was kind of incredible. They'd go all the way from Oklahoma into northern Mexico. The Comanche moon is a phrase, and folks were very scared, especially in the autumn months, which I guess we're heading toward a Comanche moon now, because that's when the Comanches were reputed to invade Mexico, was in the fall, because the grass was high, and the grass, of course, was their gasoline for their horses. So the Comanches often raided Mexico, but they didn't often raid Texas towns. And this is one of the few instances of such an event happening. And it was a direct response to what happened at the Council House in San Antonio. So what I'm looking for in this chapter, I want you to know about the Pinateca. I want you to know that they're the most powerful band of Comanche in Texas at this point. And I want you to know about their raid. And I also want you to know about their tactics. One of the interesting things about the Comanche is when they were attacked, they would just disperse. They very, very seldom would mount a defense. What they would do is everybody would just run all kinds of different directions, and it made them really hard to hit. And what they're doing, and this is what Gwynne talks about, is that after Linville, after Victoria, there's a group of Texas Rangers that chases these Pinateca that have conducted these raids and kidnapped some Anglos, and they meet near Luling, Texas, near where Bucky's is on I-10. And there's a major battle, and the Texans argue that they inflicted a major defeat on the Comanche. here at the Battle of Plum Creek. But what Gwynne says is what the Comanche did is they did their usual dispersal act that gave their women and children time to get away before they fought the Texans. So Gwynne doesn't think the Battle of Plum Creek was a disaster for the Comanche at all, that it was just their usual tactic when they were attacked. So take a look at chapter 7. And one of the things one of the reasons I have this picture up is that when the Comanches would raid a town, when they would raid even an individual house, what they would often do is they would just wear the clothes that they had captured. They would wear them back. And so at times you would see Comanche warriors wearing women's dresses. In this case, you see Comanche warriors with umbrellas that they had stolen during their raid. So this was one of the key aspects of Comanche life. The other thing is in these raids, the Comanche were able to capture about 2,000 horses. But the problem with all these captured goods for the Comanche was it really slowed them down as they retreated back into North Texas. And this was one of the reasons that the Texas cavalry that was sent against them to punish them after these raids were able to catch up with them. So interesting story. So 6 and 7, first of all, the Cherokee, what happens with them in East Texas, and then the Council House incident. I'm going to call it an incident to remain neutral. Some people call it a fight. Some people call it a massacre. And then the consequence of what happened at the Council House event when the Pennateca, under the overall leadership of the Indian chief named Buffalo Hump, decides he needs to take revenge for what the Texans have done and attacks 2 Texas communities. Then the Comanches are chased at the Battle of Plum Creek, and they were either defeated, completely defeated, or they managed to escape to fight another day.